Okay, I'm gonna talk about identity and why it is so important. Okay, so identity is the theme of this video as I shake my bones around. So identity. This is the reason why you keep failing. Why do you keep failing? Why do you keep circling back round to bad habits? Why do you keep going back on your plans, on your word, on your intentions? You might really want to change, but unless you have a grasp of this single concept, you're never going to truly be able to make the kind of change that you want. Because even if you think that you can change, even if you really believe deep down and have every intention of changing, you're always going to slide back into your default. And what this default is how you identify yourself at a core level. So what this is essentially the story that you tell yourself in your head of the kind of person that you are. So let's say you are looking to become successful. Let's say you want to make a lot of money, and your entire life all you've heard is that rich people are scumbags. Rich people, they only get to where they're getting because of stepping on the little man's head, because they take advantage of people, because they screw people over. And that you may not have money, you may not be rich, but at least you have a conscience. At least you have your virtue, right? If you believe in the virtuous poor story, then no matter how much you tell yourself you want to be successful, no matter how much you tell yourself you want to make a lot of money, you want to be rich, if on an unconscious level you actually hold that belief that there's something evil about being rich, or that there's something about you which just doesn't resonate with being rich or being super wealthy or having money, then no matter what happens, you're always going to find yourself back in that position, because the stories that you tell yourself in your mind are what really creates your reality. So if you have an identity about being broke, like you're always broke, oh I'm poor, I come from a poor family, I'm broke, you know, you identify with it and you enjoy it. It might sound crazy, but on some level you enjoy it. You kind of enjoy the whole story of like victimhood that you tell yourself, and like your struggle, and you're such a good person, you're just trying to get by, you're trying to do your best, and you have that kind of romantic ideal of yourself in your mind. When you have opportunities to actually make relatively easy money, or you have an opportunity that might come once in a lifetime to make an exorbitant amount of money, you're going to find some way to sabotage yourself. You're going to find some way to shoot yourself in the foot, and you may not know this consciously, but you will do it. You see this all the time. One of the most prevalent archetypes of this is the starving artist. And I've got a lot of friends, and you might have a few friends like this as well, who might identify with the artist kind of identity, right? They identify as an artist. And a lot of people who identify as the artist, unfortunately, also identify as a specific subsect of the artist, which is called the starving artist. And if you identify as a starving artist, you know, a pariah who suffers for their art, who goes unappreciated, but they do the art for the sake of the art and no monetary reward, then you're basically shooting yourself in the foot if you actually ever want to be successful financially. And it doesn't matter how much you tell yourself, oh, I want to make money. If you have the identity and you truly believe and see yourself as the starving artist, you're never ever going to get there, because any opportunity you actually have to make money, you're going to sabotage yourself. It's the same with health as well. Like people who, let's say you might want to go to the gym, you might want to start losing weight, but let's say you identify as someone who isn't healthy. You just identify as a slacker or someone who's lazy. You identify as someone who just sits around and like smokes. Let's say all your friends smoke and you smoke with them, and you sit around and you eat a bunch of junk food all the time, and that's your identity, and you're like a lazy slacker, and that's just how you identify yourself. You might get motivated for a hot second. You might get motivated for a week, for a month, for a few months to start making those improvements to your health and your fitness. However, it's never going to stick. And I can tell you, as someone who used to identify as a slacker, maybe not someone who was physically unfit, but definitely someone who identified as being kind of like a slacker or unhealthy, your struggle with discipline is rarely about the actual work itself, and almost always about how you identify with yourself and viewing your work through a lens of that identity. Let me just turn this down. All right, that's better. So, what does this mean for you? Let's say that you are looking to make some big changes in your life. Let's say you're unsatisfied with where you currently are. It's not enough to be unsatisfied with your circumstances. You have to also shift yourself, your identity, the way you view yourself. So it's all well and good saying, oh, I'm sick of being broke. I'm sick of living in this place. I'm sick of not having money to afford this. But if secretly you enjoy identifying with the starving artist, the suffering pariah, or, you know, the noble, the humble, poor man who does good, you know, like the working man, the working class hero, you know, who, like, you're suffering and you're in squalor, but, you know, you have a good heart and you're plucky and, you know, you rise above your circumstances, right? But you never quite make it. You can never truly be that guy on the top, because that would go against your core identity. What you need to do is shift that core identity. And it might sound kind of obvious, like fake it till you make it, but I'm telling you, this works. I used to be a sweetaholic. So I used to, anyone who knew me from when I was a kid or a teenager will tell you that I used to be addicted to junk food, sweets, especially sweets, candy. Like I used to eat packets a day. I used to go down in the morning, and the first thing I would do when I was younger, when I was like a kid or my early teens, I would literally go get a big bottle of Fanta Orange and literally just like chug a bunch of Fanta Orange. Like I used to be unhealthy. Thankfully I was blessed. I was never unfit. I was always like able to be active, but my actual diet was atrocious. And now for the last 5 or so years, I have been completely plant-based, vegan. And a lot of people who've met me within that time can't even comprehend what I'm telling you, which is the fact that I used to eat such a ridiculous amount of junk, sweets, meat. Anyone who knew me from back when I was younger knows how much I love chicken, hot wings, spare ribs. I used to be the biggest meat eater. Like, if a meal didn't have meat in it, it wasn't a meal to me. Like, I didn't consider it to be a meal. And People, it's funny because people I meet now act as if, well, you're just different. Like, you just don't feel the same way. Like, oh, I could never do that. You know, I could never be me. I could never go without meat. But I used to be that. I literally used to say the exact same things to vegetarians and vegans who I met. I used to have the exact same opinions, the exact same beliefs, that even if I could see someone else do it, that's just not me. But what happened was that over the course of time, I didn't start with veganism. It started with a bunch of other things. I started cleaning up my diet. I started focusing on my fitness. I started focusing on self-improvement in so many different aspects that the vegan thing just sort of came naturally after a few years of it. But once you change your core identity around things, you understand that you can actually have so much of what you want to have in life. So many things that you feel resistance towards doing come down to that core identity. A lot of people who know me now could clearly see that I have an identity formed around a lot of very, very different things that I used to back in the past. And I'm sure you have many examples of this too. You have a lot of identities that from back when you were a kid, you've let go of now as an adult. However, there are a few core identities that you've adopted that you refuse to let go of. And you're not going to grow and ascend to that next level until you learn to let go of identities that are no longer serving you. So there may be a point, they may have been a point where that identity that is limiting you now was serving you at some point. Maybe that was the identity you needed. Maybe you had to feel like you were the underdog. Maybe you had to feel like, I know, those healthy habits just weren't for you. Maybe you had to feel like that at some point in your life. However, when you latch onto that and stay there, you start to stagnate. One key skill to learn is to understand where your identity is. And I'll say, for example, one identity that I actually struggle to let go of, and that I'm in the process of struggling to let go of, is the underdog mentality. So one reason why a lot of the times I might be very late to stuff, or like rush last minute to do stuff, or I might seem in some cases like I'm very spontaneous or unorganized and haphazard, depending on who you ask. It could be impulsive and spontaneous, or it could be I don't know, it could be procrastination, I suppose. But the reason why I procrastinate so much, really... Oh, okay. Sorry, car next to me. It wasn't about me. The reason why I procrastinate so much, and why I have historically, is because I identify with being the underdog. So I always had that core level identity within myself, which I never really examined and understood until about maybe a year ago, which is that I have the hero image in my head of, you know, wait till everything gets as bad as possible to the last possible second, and then overcome all the odds and succeed, like, no matter what. That's the kind of ideal I have. If things are going too easy and if things are too easy too quickly, I have a tendency to self-sabotage, because I kind of need to see things go downhill and have a lot of pressure on, and then I'm ready to turn up. So when it comes to consistent, steady action, something I've had to really change in myself is that idea of who I am, right? It's very, very easy for me to be motivated and very easy for me to be turned on and take chances and succeed against all odds when the whole deck's stacked against me and I'm feeling a lot of pressure. I work fantastically under pressure, and that's how that identity has helped me. I work incredibly well under pressure. I don't stress out. I don't lose my head. And anyone who knows me can testify to this. Anyone who's worked with me or has been with me in very stressful situations where everyone else is losing their minds, I'm always able to stay somewhat calm, even jovial and lighthearted in a lot of cases. And the reason for that is, in a lot of ways, this identity that I have of myself, where I know that when things come down to the wire at the last possible second, I have belief in myself that I can bring it back. And in some ways, that is a really helpful identity to have in certain situations. However, as I said before, certain things that can serve you at a certain point in your life can sometimes begin to stop serving you and actually start hindering you when you need to evolve to new paradigms of your life. So that's the positive aspect of that. The positive aspect is that I'm really, really good under pressure. However, the negative aspect of that is what? I'm always really late. I always leave things to the last minute. I always procrastinate. I'm always I lack consistency. I lack consistency in the absence of pressure. If there's no pressure, it's difficult for me to actually just be consistent at the same level all the time. I kind of need to slide back and let pressure build up, and then I blast through everything. And that's just based on the way I've identified myself as like the hero who succeeds at the last minute. That's just kind of the archetype that I personally always resonated with. And you know, if you might be the starving artist, for example, that might help you in some ways as well. That might help you with your art, with your creation. It might help you when it comes to just the unbridled love, joy, and passion that you pour into your work without any means for a reward, without any expectation for a reward. It could actually help you create something absolutely beautiful that you wouldn't otherwise be able to create if you had the expectation of monetary compensation, if you had that expectation of not art for the sake of art itself, but art for the sake of money. However, it gets to a certain point where it might not be useful for you to have that identity anymore. To realize where the identity has finished serving its purpose, and for you to grow into the next phase of your life, you need to adopt a new identity. Is something that we've been doing since we were kids. However, a lot of us get to a certain state of arrested development in our early adulthood, which I've noticed a lot in myself and with others, where we latch onto a lot of identities we had when we were younger and refuse to grow out of. And mostly because we're not even aware we truly have those identities. But when you really start diving deep into every pain point in your life, every area of your life where you're suffering, or where you lack consistency, or where you're constantly saying, oh man, I wish I wasn't this, or I wish I could change this about myself, look behind the layers. Like, look into each and every one of those aspects of yourself and find the commonality. Find what the story is that you tell yourself. Find what your identity is, what you're identifying as, because that can open up a whole lot of doors for you. Like, once you realize, oh, I act like this because at a deep level, this is what resonates with me. This identity is what I feel like I should live out as. Once you understand that, and not condemning it either, because there's a lot of positives to those identities too. Like, the reason why we have them in the first place is because at some level they do actually serve us and they do actually help us. Otherwise we wouldn't have them at all. However, once you become aware of them and become aware of their limitations, as well as how they can help, that is how you can start to shed them or let them go, or at the very least, maybe even work with them along with another identity that can kind of come in together and mesh together with that, and actually use it to move forwards with what you want to do. So I'm starting to get a little bit, I guess, esoteric with this, but I think I'm going to end it here, because that is really all I wanted to get through today. It was, what is your identity? That's the one thing I really want you to ask yourself. What is your identity? Are you the underdog hero that succeeds at the last minute? Are you the suffering pariah who starves for their art? Are you the princess? That's another common one that I've seen. Are you the princess or the queen who has things done for them, who is of like a different sort of class to other people, and there's certain things that you're just kind of above doing that you expect to be done for you. Are you a loser or a nerd? The nerd one and the loser one can be so damaging, and that's part of why I think self-improvement is such a fantastic step, because it forces you out of that identity into a new one. But yeah, I've already gone on for way too long with this. I really just wanted to share that concept with you, and I hope that it can help massively. And I don't know, maybe just spark a different way of thinking that you may not have thought of before, and bring you one step closer to understanding yourself a bit better. So that is all. If you resonated with this, that would be awesome. I love the fact that you resonated with it. Even if not, and you reach the end of this, thank you for watching all of this. I love you, and I want what's best for you, and I would love for you to actually let me know if any of this is resonating with you at all. Just I know, drop me a comment or just message me or whatever. I would just really like to know what is and isn't connecting with people, because I am finding a lot of value in doing this, and I want to share more ways in which we can grow together. So, as cheesy and corny as that sounds, then I'm just gonna have to see you next time. Peace.